What if I told you that most people are not using the Digitone II to its full potential? What do I mean by that? Everyone knows it for its super flexible sound design and its extremely robust sequencer, but there's an extra dimension to that, and it's not necessarily spelled out in the manual, but it comes from these performance features that allow you to combine the sequencer and the sound design in a way that only the Digitone II can, and really bring this thing to life so it's a much more interactive and responsive, playable instrument. So today I want to share with you a technique that will hopefully point you in that direction and give you a sense of what this thing is capable of. This technique involves combining 3 different features: velocity mod, track layering, and fills. Let me explain what's going on here. This track has 2 lead parts. They're the same patch, only one of them is an octave higher. And they're both being triggered by track 4. Track 4 is filled with all the same notes that are present on tracks 2 and 3, but the notes on track 4 are fill notes. So through track layering, we can trigger notes 2 and 3, but only when we hit the fill button. Now, why is the sound changing? Well, that's because of velocity modulation. This sounds kind of complex. I promise it's actually pretty straightforward. We're gonna solo out to track 2. This is our bass sound, right? This is what we're going to morph into that brighter, more aggressive sound. By doing that, we're gonna go function, setup, scroll down, and we're gonna see all these different pages: breath control, modulation wheel, pitch bend, aftertouch, key tracking, and velocity mod. So obviously we wanna do velocity mod, but in order for me to demonstrate this, we actually wanna go to modulation wheel. And this is actually my super secret helpful trick. Start with modulation wheel and then copy the modulations over to velocity mod, because you actually won't be able to edit as fluidly from the velocity mod page, which I'll demonstrate for you later. So just trust me right now, go to the mod wheel page. The way this operates, we have 4 different dials and we have this bar on the side. This bar represents the depth amount, the intensity of our modulation. The wheels, the little dials here, they represent how far and in either direction, positive or negative, that we want to warp and push the parameter that we are choosing. And this up top part is where we pick the parameter. Just like the LFO, we can scroll and find whatever we want. So let's do something really obvious like envelope depth. So let's put it like 18. Now, this is really useful because so often you'll be writing something like the filter and then you'll realize, oh, I went too far, dang it, and you gotta draw back. With this, you actually get to decide how far is too far. And then of course you get to do that with 3 other parameters simultaneously. The next thing I want to mess with is the volume. We're going to pull down the amp volume to about -6.30, somewhere like that. So now these 2 different sounds, this softer, murkier sound and this more intense sound, are kind of in the same ballpark. We don't really want them to be exactly the same. We just kind of want to bring the distance between them closer together. Next up, I want to mess with the ratio. Let's do ratio B. I like that. So it brings it down an octave, which usually would make it a little softer, a little more palatable, but then it's also getting more frazzled and more intense. And finally, the last thing we want to mess with, we go to LFO1. This is a random source messing with our B1 offset. So the offset section is kind of like a fine-tuned way of adjusting your operator instead of fixed ratios. This being a random source, what we're going to do is essentially just increase the intensity of that randomness affecting it. So let's go back to mod wheel page and let's pick LFO1 depth. I like that. It's kind of subtle. It's just throwing a little bit of uncertainty into the mix. Now is the section where we have to get a little bit detail oriented. So we're going to copy this modulation. And before we paste it over to our velocity mod section, we have to 100% make sure this is turned down, because if we leave that up, it just stays up. And it's going to affect what you're doing, and you're going to be like, what's going on? And you're going to drive yourself crazy like I did for 10 minutes one time trying to figure out what was wrong. So turn that down, copy the modulations, just do function, copy. Now we're going to back out. We're going to go up to velocity mod, and now we're just going to do function, paste. Let's do the exact same thing on track 3. Now I promised I was going to explain why we had to do this in the mod wheel page and not on the velocity page. Well, check this out. If we try to turn it down, it just always jumps right up because this is fixed to the velocity amount of the notes that are getting triggered on the sequencer. So it's not fluid. Whereas when we edit on that modulation wheel page, it's 100% fluid, and we can audition and hear how the sounds morph between these different extreme points. Now we got to do a couple of things. We need to back out. Go up here to velocity to volume, turn that all the way to the left so that it's off. Do that for the other track as well. And then we need to back out, go to the notes of our tracks, and for each individual one, we need to turn off any velocity information. The reason we did that is because we can freely move the value of the velocity, and it's going to manipulate and morph our track right in front of our eyes. So if there's anything you take away from this video, at least use this. It's like having 4 hands at the same time across multiple pages. Hey, if you're following along and you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. It actually helps out the channel a lot. I'm also going to have a free downloadable project file for this track on my Patreon. Again, that's going to be free, but if you want to support the channel or whatever, that's always appreciated. Anyway, back to what we're doing. We need to add an extra track to the mix. Tracks 2 and 3, those are like the party tracks. Track 4 is going to be our extra track. That's like the designated driver. That one is going to control the route that everybody gets home. This is a very weird metaphor. Just go with it. So track 4, turn the volume down on that. We don't need to hear it. Now we want to go to setup, track layering, and then we're going to choose tracks 2 and 3. So now this track is controlling those tracks. Now we want to go to track 2. We're going to copy these notes. We're going to paste them onto track 4. Again, we got to do something a little bit tedious. We got to go through each individual note, and we're going to set it to be a fill note. And then we're also going to push it over on the micro timing scale so that it lands a little bit later than the other 2 tracks. This is going to make it so that it overwrites those tracks. Of course, a requirement for this to work is if we go to tracks 2 and 3, we have to make sure our voice allocation is that there's only one voice for that track. Otherwise, they're going to overlap. Whew! So just to summarize what we've set up so far, when we hold down the fill button, that's going to send notes to tracks 2 and 3. By doing this, we're also going to be sending velocity data over to those tracks. Both of those tracks have velocity mods, so this data will allow us to warp and change the sound at will. So now if we just hang out on the trig page of track 4, we can toggle on this malleable version of our 2 lead parts. But we are not done. So we could take these notes over on track 4. Why don't we just shift them over? What would that sound like? But that's not good enough for me. I know we can do better. Track 4's notes are arriving a little bit later. Now we're gonna do the opposite. Let's instead have them arrive a little bit early. Any notes on tracks 2 or 3 are gonna cut them off, and it's gonna be like an extra layer of notes underneath our main melody. So let's latch on our fills. So now it's gonna play permanently. And let's start messing with our pattern. Let's just turn it down to like a weird number. 21. So now we got a polyrhythm going on. Go to setup, control all config. If we set just tracks 2 and 3 to be control all, then now when we control all, the velocity, it's gonna also control those tracks and not just these extra ones. This is why I love the Digitone II. Thank you for coming along with me on this journey. Oh, make sure you like and subscribe. This is Slumpfish, signing out.